Have you ever considered that Canada, a nation abundant in resources and boasting a high standard of living, might suddenly become synonymous with economic collapse? This is not a joke, but a stark reality. Today, we will explore how a country once viewed as a model of stability has fallen into an economic abyss. Once, Canada was seen as a prosperous land where homeownership was attainable, corporations thrived with trillions in reserves, and young people believed in a bright future. Now all these notions are under threat. We will delve into the story behind Canada's economic downfall, and you may be shocked by what lies beneath this tragedy. How did the sixth largest economy in productivity worldwide drop to 18th place? How is it that even the poorest U.S. states produce more than the entire country? And perhaps most troubling, can Canada ever recover from this nightmare? The root cause of this collapse is crucial to understand. You might know that economies rely heavily on money, but what happens when all the cash begins to drain away? That is precisely what is happening in Canada. Since 2015, over $1 trillion have left the country. You might wonder where all this money went. The answer is straightforward. American enterprises, investors, and entrepreneurs are fleeing Canada in droves. The main reason is the impossibility of conducting business normally. Overbearing taxes, complex bureaucratic procedures, and a complete lack of incentives for investment. These factors turn running a business in Canada into a nightmare. Let's examine where it's easier to invest. Countries like Germany, Japan, and the United States lead the list, while Canada ranks as the second most difficult place for investment, more challenging than most nations. Ironically, it's now easier for individuals to immigrate to Canada than ever before. Yet this influx creates a new dilemma. How can an economy that fails to support its businesses provide opportunities for millions of newcomers? Even worse, the remaining money within Canada is not working for the economy. Major corporations sit on vast reserves, trillions of dollars. Yet instead of investing, they hoard their cash. Why have Canadian companies become mere custodians of wealth rather than engines of economic growth? What happened to these funds, and how does this hoarding threaten the future of ordinary Canadians? Have you ever wondered what it's like to live in a country where owning a home, traditionally a symbol of stability and prosperity, has become an unreachable dream? Welcome to Canada. Here, real estate is not just expensive, it is the least affordable in the country's history. Until 2015, the average Canadian could afford a home costing about 5 times their annual income. That seemed reasonable. Now that ratio has nearly doubled to 10. This means even with two stable incomes, buying a typical house is out of reach. Could you imagine living in such a reality? Ironically, new homes continue to be built, but affordability does not improve. Today, renting in Canada can cost more than what it previously took to buy a home. What has the government done about this crisis? It only acknowledged the problem after millions of families face the threat of bankruptcy. The real estate sector has become the leading pillar of the national economy, acting as a lifeline for a struggling financial system. Yet, what are the consequences if this bubble bursts? Why does the government continue to prop up soaring property prices despite the mounting risks? This persistent support threatens to undermine the financial stability of younger generations, transforming housing from a basic necessity into an exclusive luxury for the privileged few. Is there any real hope of halting this dangerous escalation? Meanwhile, hardworking individuals find themselves achieving little despite their efforts. Back in the 1970s, Canada ranked among the top 6 most productive economies worldwide. Today, however, it has fallen to 18th place, even trailing behind some of the poorest U.S. states like Alabama. Those who once built, innovated, and expanded now face a starkly different reality. Factories sit idle and companies prefer hoarding cash rather than investing in growth. Consider the largest corporations, sitting on vast reserves of gold yet remaining inactive. This stagnation is a key reason behind the economic slowdown. Excessively high corporate taxes, prolonged approval processes, and relentless bureaucracy make doing business in Canada a daunting challenge. Many entrepreneurs find it easier to relocate or simply cease operations rather than battle these obstacles. Even the infrastructure meant to support economic activity is deteriorating rapidly. Ports operate with outdated technology, trucks queue for hours, and trade flows slow down significantly. Exporting or importing through Canada now takes twice as long as through modern ports elsewhere. Despite having abundant resources, advanced technology, and skilled labor, how did Canadian manufacturing fall into such disrepair? And who will bear the cost? Canadians work longer hours but see diminishing returns, raising questions about the sustainability of this economic model. Without decisive investments in the future, what lies ahead for the economy? When thinking about immigration, many assume it boosts the economy, bringing fresh ideas and additional labor. But in Canada, the opposite has occurred. The country admits more newcomers per capita than any other Western nation, with numbers reaching record highs since 2015. At first glance, this should ease labor shortages. However, paradoxically, employment remains insufficient and wages continue to decline. This demographic surge exposes a fundamental problem. The economy cannot handle such rapid growth. Infrastructure strains under the pressure, affordable housing becomes scarce, hospitals are overwhelmed, and millions of newcomers arrive without access to essential services. An even more troubling aspect is the demographic imbalance. Among those aged 18 to 40, there are 10% more men than women. This disparity could have serious implications for societal stability, potentially fueling tensions, family issues, and social conflicts. More people are generally seen as beneficial, yet Canada appears unprepared for such an influx. When contemplating the country's economy, thoughts often turn to manufacturing and technological innovation. But perhaps in reality, the core issues lie elsewhere, revealing a fragile foundation that struggles to support its growing population and ambitions. What about real estate? Currently, it is the main pillar supporting Canada's economy, yet relying on it may come at an exorbitant cost. The Canadian housing market resembles a massive bubble, with prices soaring faster than incomes, leaving young people effectively shut out of homeownership. For an entire generation, the path to financial security seems blocked. My own son bought a house at 25, while I struggle to rent an apartment without a roommate. Stories like these are common across the country, painting a bleak picture for many young Canadians. Meanwhile, developers keep building, and the government turns a blind eye as real estate has become a vital sector of the economy. But beneath this facade lies a serious threat. If housing prices suddenly fall, it could destabilize the entire economic system. Investors, corporations, and even foreign buyers treat Canadian real estate as a financial asset, prioritizing price growth over the needs of actual residents. Today, real estate surpasses even manufacturing in economic importance, yet it's clear that such a situation cannot last forever. The question isn't if, but when the bubble will burst and what that will mean for Canada. How much will this crisis cost millions of people? When an economic crisis becomes unavoidable, one expects government intervention, plans, measures, support for those affected. But in Canada, the reality is quite different. Politicians debate and form commissions, yet little action follows. Recall the housing crisis that has been escalating since 2015, with prices skyrocketing and young people pushed out of major cities. And what was the government's response? A weekend seminar after which they returned without a concrete plan. Meanwhile, the economy continues to weaken. Canada remains one of the most heavily taxed nations globally, sending a clear message to businesses: leave. Many companies are already relocating, taking jobs, innovation, and future prospects with them. The public is increasingly dissatisfied. The current ruling party has become one of the least popular in Canadian history, as citizens grow tired of broken promises. Instead of implementing meaningful change, the government bets on population growth and raises taxes. Can trust be restored when crises multiply and the situation deteriorates? Immigration accelerates, infrastructure crumbles, yet the government pretends everything is under control. Why does the government continue to worsen the economic situation instead of taking decisive action to save it? In summary, Canada's economy has fallen into decline. Billions of dollars are leaving the country. Housing prices hit record highs, and the government seems to have forgotten its duty to serve the people. But the crucial question remains: is there a way out? Experts believe recovery is possible through tax cuts, support for businesses, and reducing bureaucracy, which could stimulate economic growth. Revisiting the management of natural resources and upgrading infrastructure could once again make Canada an attractive destination for investment. In the past, the country served as a global example, drawing in investors, creating jobs, and offering promising opportunities for young people. Why not aim to revive that legacy? However, achieving this requires radical reforms in governance. Is the government prepared to accept such responsibility? Can Canadians unite, overcome the crisis, and implement meaningful system changes? Will Canada be able to survive, recover, and reclaim its greatness? The future depends entirely on their willingness to act. Share your thoughts below, and thank you for engaging.